Hello and welcome to episode 290 of Sudden Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I live in the city that is wondering, did Tom Brady stay 1 year too long?
I don't think we have to wonder anymore, do we?
I don't think so either, but the city's wondering because they can't believe it. They're in shock.
Well,
And frankly, I can't believe it because I drafted him to be my backup fantasy quarterback. So, I know they lost a couple linemen, and I know Gronk is gone, and they had some receivers hurt, but they look terrible. They can't score a point.
no, and when you look at that team, just when you look at Brady's offseason, he retires. There's rumors he wants to go to a different place. He wants to be in Miami. He wants to be in Vegas. Doesn't want to be in Tampa Bay. They fire the coach. He comes back. Gronk doesn't. He's got the divorce, which you never know how that's affecting somebody. It's just a very weird season,
And then he takes time off to go to Kraft's wedding and misses his meetings, which he's never done.
Yeah, and he signs the TV deal.
It's like it's not really a priority.
No,
It's not the level of priority that it's been in the past.
and that might be, and sadly, because if people listen to the show knows this was my Super Bowl pick, New Orleans Saints. But right now, you have the Tampa Bay Bucks in first place at 3-4, tied with the 3-4 Falcons. Right at their heels is the 2-5 Panthers with PJ Washington, who just beat Tom Brady. And then New Orleans at 2-5. That's a terrible division, right?
Yeah. And we expected two teams to go to the playoffs out of that division.
We thought Bucks and Saints. That was a no-brainer.
Yeah, that was an easy one.
And then I just want to sort of we'll give our thoughts on each division and sort of go over the chaos of the NFL season, but let's move north. We're in the NFC South. Let's go to the NFC North. The Vikings are 5-1. The Packers 3-4. And they look terrible.
Yeah. And I have no idea where the Packers are going. They could be like the Bucks and just, they could be a 500 or worse team.
And people have speculated, much like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that likes to have his name out there. When is the next Aaron Rodgers, I'm unhappy, I'm something happening? When he's going to go blow somebody up on Fred McAfee show. And then you have the Bears and the Lions, who are both pretty terrible.
And I expected a lot more out of the Lions. I really did.
Well, they came out after Hard Knocks, won that first game. And then, to be fair, though, they lost Amon St. Brown. They lost DeAndre Swift. They don't have their first pick, Jamison Williams. And then I think the other big news story out of Detroit right now is that after a 3-sack game in week 1, Aiden Hutchinson's been very quiet. And all the guys drafted after him with a better athletic profile seem pretty good.
Yeah, it's a shame. And
then probably the happy surprise, NFC West, Seattle 4-3, first place. Rams 3-4.
Smith is going to get a big contract somewhere.
It's tough because he's 32, and
all right, he's going to get a better contract than he has right now.
Yeah, we'll see how he plays the next couple of weeks. I think Metcalf has a high ankle sprain, but Walker the third, that running back, looks great. Geno Smith's completing 73% of his passes. And Steve, what's his face? Who's the coach? Pete Carroll. I was about to call him Steve Carell. Pete Carroll could not be happier as a coach right now.
No.
He said,
he's a great kicker.
Yeah. Pete Carroll said, my system works. Russ said it didn't. Russ, who's now out for a couple weeks, but has been absolute trash in Denver, a very disappointing team. Meanwhile, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are in first place. They have one of the best offenses in football. And they have 2 Broncos first, 2 Broncos seconds, 2 players, and a 5th.
I've been speculating lately that this Russell Wilson trade could be as bad for the team that got him as when the Vikings got Herschel Walker.
I don't think that's even, because Russ has not looked like Russ for 2 years now.
No, and you and I picked that team to be last in that division.
We did, but we thought
That's one of the accurate things we've done.
Yeah, we did think that division was going to be better, but yeah. And then I think the most surprising division in football is probably the NFC East, right? Mainly because of the 6-1 New York Giants.
Yeah.
The Eagles are 6-0. The Cowboys are 5-2, and even the Commanders, who just beat Green Bay, is 3-4. But the Giants, who had a shuffled offensive line, a who's who at wide receiver, because all their guys that were supposed to be good at wide receiver, like Kadarius Toney and other guys, are out. And Brian Daboll just finds a way to. That's coaching.
It is coaching. And, they could finish second in Buffalo. Maybe they make, I'm sorry, they're with the Jets out there.
Yeah.
But the Giants could be in the playoffs, and we'd have never picked that.
I mean, with the way they're playing right now, like I said, I know they won a lot of they're only plus 20 in point differential. And they've won a lot of one-score games, but Daniel Jones looks, you don't want him to be your quarterback moving forward, but he's found a way to make him usable. And then AFC West, I think we both had the Chiefs, who are 5-2. The Chargers are 4-3, but they don't look well coached. Speaking of the opposite of good coached.
Yeah, they did not look good yesterday at all.
And you're sort of baffled when you watch Justin Herbert because of all the love he gets, and you know what kind of arm he has. And they're a dink and dunk offense, which for Austin Eckler fantasy fans like yourself, it's great,
Yeah.
But for winning football games, and then you have the Raiders at 2-4, who I thought were going to be better, and the aforementioned Broncos, who at 2-5 look really, really bad.
Terrible.
I mean, with Russ, 7 games they've scored 100 points, which is not good, and they just do not look good.
Well, I watched the entire Chiefs 49ers game.
As did I.
And coming out of the gate, the 49ers looked great. McCaffrey was, even though he'd only been for a couple of days, he was going through gapping holes, and I thought, whoa, this is really, really good. And then all of a sudden, Mahomes, who I said would be better because he was going to be able to spread the ball around a lot more.
Yeah.
Is doing exactly that. And, who's the guy who scored 3 touchdowns?
Mikael Hardman.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Well, he's got a similar athletic profile to Tyreek Hill as far as speed, but he's not as thickly built or as good as a receiver. But, like people said, you changed up a lot of what you do on offense, and I think we're finally starting to see the Chiefs put it all together.
They were so occupied with guarding Kelsey that everybody else killed him.
Yeah. And, Juju, I think, was, underrated coming out of college, had that incredible rookie season with the Steelers. Maybe got a little bit too much hype, got injured, but he's a really good receiver.
And he's gotten better the last 3 weeks. Each week he's gotten better.
Yeah. And again, as we'll talk when we have our Steeler moment at the end of the podcast, quarterbacks and receivers need time playing together in football games. That's how they develop chemistry. That's how they know where they're going to be. That's how they know that, given this coverage, he's going to throw a back shoulder. And I think, Juju and Mahomes are starting to click.
Absolutely they are. They look good.
The AFC South, the Titans are 4-2 again. The Colts are 3-3, and they just benched Matt Ryan for the season.
Which surprised me. We thought, that team's going to be a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
And we thought he would be better there, and obviously he's not.
Well, one of my season-long bets was the Jacksonville Jaguars to win the AFC South, but they're now 2-5.
They could have won yesterday.
They could have. They could have won a lot of games.
They played well yesterday.
Yeah.
They just didn't win. But they're definitely improving. I like the way Trevor Lawrence looks. I watched him yesterday. I watched that game for a while when you were playing yesterday. I was impressed.
And then the Texans, who we knew would be bad, are 1-4.
Yeah.
And then
They're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere. In the AFC North, like I said, we'll talk about the Steelers at the end of the podcast. But the Browns are 2-5. And then the Bengals and Ravens are tied at 4-3. And the Bengals are starting to look like the Bengals that I predicted to win the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is starting to look like Joe Burrow again. Those receivers are clicking. And,
Yeah.
And then Lamar is and the Ravens are the Ravens, right?
The Ravens are the Ravens, but they've lost a couple games because of the analytics. And I want to see where that goes. They could end up getting somebody fired.
Yeah.
Because they could easily be 6-1 or 7-0.
And again, I don't know if this calls as analytics because they mentioned it on the broadcast that the analytics said it was a 51. It was better to kick the field goal by 0.1% than it was last night in the Steeler game. And we'll get to the Steelers, but the Dolphins have held one of the worst offenses of football to 10 points. They're up by 6 late in the game, and they go for it on 4th and 1 rather than kicking the field goal to go up by 9, which the Steelers are averaging 15 points a game all season. 9 puts you up by 2 scores against the Steeler offense. Like, that just seems like a no-brainer. And, they had a chance to lose the game because...
the game.
Yeah.
But he thought he was going to ice the game by making the first down and keep the ball.
Yeah, but again, that's the, I always think about analytics. Like, you're a teacher, mom's a teacher, right?
Yep.
If the mean score in the class is an 81, that's the average score. But in every classroom, you've got a Buffalo Bills, you've got a Chiefs, you got a, So just because the analytics numbers are this, the analytics numbers can't be the same for every team in every situation,
Exactly right.
Like if I'm the Bills and I have Josh Allen behind, 4th and 1, yeah, I'm going to go for it most of the time because I'm probably going to get it like way higher than the average. But, if I'm the Texans or the Steelers, I'm not going for it. Like, my odds can't be the same as the Bills.
Well, how about the AFC East?
Yeah.
Jets.
5-2 with almost no quarterback play.
But a lot of high picks panning out.
Yeah. And that's what it takes. And the Bills...
They have stockpiled talent over the years, and now the talent's all coming together.
Yeah. And the Bills look like the Bills.
Yeah, there's no question. They're the class, along with the Chiefs. They're the class of the league, of the division.
And for the record, the Bills have scored 176 points on offense, where the Chiefs, who technically have scored 223 points without Tyreek Hill to be the top scoring offense in football. So the Chiefs are pretty good.
Chiefs are damn good. You get the Patriots with Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
They'll probably win again tonight. That'd be 3 in a row, right?
And that would make them 4-3. So every team would be above 500 in that division. Which is just crazy, right?
Yeah, it is. I didn't expect anything. Expected Buffalo to run away with that division. And they still will. But there's other good teams in that division, so...
Yeah. And I think we both feel like the AFC is much stronger. Because it's hard to really know what Philadelphia is, right?
So far, they've not really been tested.
No. We haven't seen Jalen Hurts and that offense have to go score down a few points. So I think that's part of the reason behind the Christian McCaffrey trade, which I don't think we really talked about, right?
No.
If you're the 49ers, despite being behind the Seahawks by a game, you're probably thinking, we have a very good chance to win the NFC. And then, Super Bowl's one game. And Christian McCaffrey's the kind of player that can turn one game, right?
Yeah, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah. So...
Well, they give up a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5, right?
Yeah. A 2, a 3 this year, I think a 4 next year, and they 5 the year after that or something.
So they've essentially done a Ricky Williams trade. They've given up their draft.
But not quite to the Broncos' extent, yeah. But the 49ers have also had,
Day 3.
Yeah, the 49ers had a lot of picks going into this year, so, they're on the roster like young picks and young talent, so I'm sure they feel good about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the NFL is, once again, who knows, right? You assume the Bills...
Who knows than I would have expected.
Yeah.
A lot of things that I thought were pretty lead pipe cinch locks aren't. And the opposite, things that I thought were dead in the water aren't.
Well, speaking of crazy, I know we're going to talk more football later with the NCAA, but I do want to hop over to the NBA because when you said we're talking about how crazy things are, do you know who has the best record in the Western Conference right now?
Portland?
Well, Portland is tied with the Utah Jazz at 3-0. The Utah Jazz are 3-0. The team that traded away Rudy Gobert, traded away Donovan Mitchell, and I know it's 3 games, but they're sitting at 3-0 on top of everybody in the West.
Yeah. Yeah, who's 0-3?
We have the Houston Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder, which is not surprising. The Sacramento Kings, who we thought might be a little bit better this year. And the Los Angeles Lakers.
Who are in a world of hurt.
They are just a bad basketball team. Like, there's really no way around it, right?
They really are. I mean, they're not a good team.
And they play...
have assembled a collection of players that aren't a team.
And I saw a story today with Windhorst, and what they were saying is they don't understand why the Lakers are going... I mean, I'm sure what they're trying to do is showcase Russ, although I don't think they need to worry about that, but that it seems like they're going way out of their way for Russ, like putting him in at the end of games. Like, they were suggesting that, Russ is not getting anywhere without picks attached to him, no matter who he is. So you're better off just sending him home right now and just trying to work with the team you got. What do you think about that?
I think he's such a distraction right now that would be the best course of action.
I think for him mentally, too. I think it's just been a bad news site, and every day when you have NBA people 24 hours a day on 6 different channels talking about how bad you are and what a bad fit you are and how bad you're shooting 8% from three-point range, and LeBron doing LeBron passive-aggressive things, which, if you're going to knock LeBron for anything, he's a passive-aggressive little bitch when it comes to talking about teammates, I think, his entire career. And I would say that to his face if I ever met him.
He conveys his message without calling it out.
Yeah, but he does it in like that high school girl, or high school boy, high school anybody way, high school student way, let's say that, with the maturity of a high school student, which is very unlike LeBron in every other aspect of his life, but it just seems very like childish and petty the way he does it.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And in the East, Boston and Milwaukee are both undefeated. Charlotte Hornets are 2-1. I know it's early in the season. But the 76ers are tied with the Magic at both 0-3. And the 76ers do not look good either, despite Harden being in, best shape of his career. Harden.
I think the Magic are going to be a playoff team.
I really like Paolo, and I love Franz Wagner. Wagner?
I think once they've played some games together, they're going to go on a run. I like that team.
And especially towards the end of the year, when the tanking teams are full on tanking for the French Wondering. So
I did think Adam Silver saying that it's been discussed about penalizing an NBA team sending them to the G League for tanking.
Can you see that?
I don't think it could ever be done.
Right.
But it was interesting to hear the possibility.
Which I totally get, but also, everybody is looking at Valderrama, the big Frenchman, who is an absolute freak when you watch him play basketball. He has potential to be a generational talent. He can turn your franchise around. He can sell jerseys around the world because he's also an international player. One bad season could turn your entire franchise around. It could make you worth billions of dollars more. So it's it's understandable on some level,
Yeah, it is. But you still want the integrity. If you're the commissioner, you want the integrity of the game.
You do. But I think this year, between him and Scoop, and I'm sure there'll be 2 or 3 college players that come out of the woodwork as being we could have a 6 or 7 player potential all-star draft along with maybe 2 potential franchise-altering players. I think even as a fan base right now, one of those teams, you'd be like, no, this makes sense this year. Not every year that Philadelphia was in the process. But, I can see it. Well, do you want to go college or do you want to knock off our pro talk with a little baseball, Dad?
Well, let's go baseball right now. Let's go. Let's shout out to the Astros and the Phillies.
Yeah.
And even though I was really rooting for the Padres, I really think the 2 best teams are in the World Series. The 2 hottest teams. I think the Astros might be the best team, and the Phillies are red hot. And they both have a lot of offense. I think they're going to be nice, high-scoring games, and with a lot of home runs. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So even though I've got no rooting interest, although I'd probably root for the Phillies, I've got no rooting interest for real, but I am going to look forward to watching some of the World Series.
And that's a rare place to be in these last...
Yeah. I really haven't cared the last couple of years, but right now I like Bryce Harper. I like Kyle Schwarber. There's some interesting players that I really like to watch. So I think it'd be good. So shout out to those two teams. And I think the series opens on Friday night.
And I do think Bryce Harper is one of the few players that has made himself somewhat known outside of baseball.
I do, and I think he now owns Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, but after that, yeah. Especially with the Sixers sitting at 0-3.
Yeah. All right, let's go NCAA.
All right.
I guess UCLA came back to real. And Oregon recovered from their loss to Georgia.
Yeah, big time.
Really, I watched the game day, ESPN Home Depot game day.
Right.
And it was really funny because the movie Animal House was filmed at Oregon. So they opened with the picture of the fraternity house that they used in the movie. And then the duck was dressed up in a toga, playing the guitar like the one scene where the guy's on the steps playing the guitar, I Found My Love at Cherry.
Yeah.
And then he bashes the guitar. Before he bashed the guitar, he showed the other side, it said UCLA on it, and he bashed the guitar. So I thought that was all pretty good. I thought that was pretty funny. And then I've been watching the signs in the crowd have gotten much, much more clever this year. So my favorite sign is, you know you're bad when Under Armour breaks up with you. Referring to the UCLA Under Armour breakup.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty funny. But good game. TCU looks legit to me. Have beat Oklahoma State and then Kansas State. Kansas State looked, good, but they lost their quarterback early on. And they were playing with their second string quarterback, and then he got hurt, and they put their third string quarterback in for a while. But TCU, given who they've already played, we'll see how this goes through. But they could be a threat to go undefeated going in the conference championship game.
Yeah. Well, we know that Alabama is either going to they're either going to knock one of either Tennessee or Georgia out, or they'll get knocked out of the playoff themselves.
Yeah, and Ole Miss losing, now they have to play Alabama, I think not this week, but next week. And it's at Mississippi. And whether or not, Mississippi can win or not, LSU beat them by 20.
Yeah.
So I thought Mississippi would go into the Alabama game undefeated, and they're obviously not going to. So I don't know now if they're good enough. And I know that was whoever Saban was going to play next, that they were going to be pretty angry about it. So, Mississippi State got trounced, and they're a good team. So we'll see where it goes. But, I still anticipate Alabama playing the winner of the Georgia-Tennessee game in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Because you figure Ohio State, Michigan play one of those teams is probably out of the playoff most likely. And if Clemson's got a pretty easy road, I think, to their undefeated. They're sitting at 5 in both polls right now.
Yeah, and they beat, Syracuse is undefeated, but probably not in the same league as Clemson.
No.
So, but yeah, Michigan, Ohio State, whoever wins that is going to, obviously go undefeated. Ohio State's playing Penn State this week, and even though it's at Penn State, I'm not expecting much from Penn State based upon their performance against Michigan.
No. Yeah, it looks like Clemson has the easiest route into the playoffs to me. But it looks like just...
But they're on the 5, but somebody 1 through 4 is going to be out, which will let Clemson in.
Yeah. And then there's a good chance with Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama all ahead of TCU. You could still have 2 of those teams, but all 3 of those teams aren't going to be ahead of them.
No.
And if Ohio State trounces Michigan, if TCU stays undefeated, they could be the 4th team in there, which would be pretty nice for TCU.
It'd be good to have somebody else in there other than, the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah. Indeed.
But Tennessee had some nice scheduling. They had Tennessee Martin and they won by 40.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
A break after the Alabama game, which was smart scheduling. They could give the AD credit. And then we'll see where it goes. Oklahoma State bounces back, beats Texas. But they still got at Kansas State, which will be a tough game.
Yeah.
And they're at Oklahoma and they're at Kansas. So those are 3 road games they've got left. They've got 2 home games, Iowa State and West Virginia. So we'll see. I did enjoy myself at Oklahoma State for homecoming and saw the game, and, was a great game, but it was one team. I think Oklahoma State threw 59 passes, and I think Texas threw 55. So, and a lot of incomplete passes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, they were keeping a stat on a Texas quarterback how many guys he overthrew. I think it was like 14 or 15 overthrown passes.
That's rough. It's very rough.
And I've never seen anybody keep an overthrown stat before. So UCLA's, has taken a loss, and Southern Cal lost the week before. So we got 3 1-loss teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah, they have an uphill battle getting in.
Cal's right behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, next year, or was it next year or 2024, we go to expanded playoffs?
Well, 2024 for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if something happened for 2023 if they could get it done, if they could figure out getting an agreement and get the contract negotiated.
I mean, I'm sure they're all chomping at the bit to do it. So, like you said, it'll come down to the money and everything else. But I think we're on the way.
Well, the money will be there. It's just a question of, who's getting in, who's getting an automatic bid, and is everybody covered? Like with the SEC, so we get 2. Who knows what's going to be there, but there'll be some interesting things happen.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all for the sports, right? Unless am I missing something?
Well, you didn't do your Steeler moment.
Oh yeah. I've been trying to do the rose-colored glasses thing as best I can, and I did see things from Pickett. Even though he threw 3 interceptions, like there were times he looks very calm in the pocket. He seems in control. There were at least 2 times where he stopped the play and told the guy to go back. Looked like he was going to be, an illegal motion penalty, which they did get on a stupid play that Steelers got called on. George Pickens looks fantastic.
Agreed.
In the defense, people are complaining online, obviously in Steelers, because I can't help but look sometimes. But the Steelers did drop 3 easy interceptions last night, like in their hands. 4?
They dropped 4 interceptions.
Yeah, I thought the Levi Wallace one would have been a tough one. I mean, the Cam Sutton and the Terrell Edmonds were just breadbasket. You have to catch those balls.
So let me ask you the question, Jason. Are they wearing the same gloves as the wideouts?
I mean, that's when they always say that's why they're defensive backs and not wide receivers.
But, I mean, if they're wearing the same gloves as the wideouts, they should be catching them with those sticky gloves, right?
They should. Cam Sutton, it was in his hands. Like, Terrell Edmonds just missed the ball, and it, breadbasket.
It went right through him like a breadbasket.
Just like it was.
Like a basketball hoop.
Yeah. But I would say this. Despite those interceptions, the Steelers' defense held Miami to 16 points. They held Tyreek.
They're giving up 13 points in record time.
Yeah, and they held Tyreek and Waddle under 100 yards. They played I mean, if your defense gives up 16 points, that's not a lot for your.
And I think they had a great defensive game plan. They got gashed early, made the adjustments, and played really, really well.
And just because he takes so much crap, special shout out to Devin Bush, who's just been killing it this year.
He played really well last night. He's
been excellent in coverage. He's playing. I mean, we talked about him earlier. Josh Jacobs on the Raiders, who was another 5th-year player who got their 5th-year option turned down. And they're both playing like guys that, a new owner came in and was like, we don't need you here anymore.
Yeah.
And they both have a little bit, I'll show you. But, again, the Steelers' defense, 16 points. But the offense, Dan Orlovsky called it out on Twitter, and a bunch of people chimed in that they feel like, the Steelers have basically 10 plays that they run, all out of very basic formations. Someone else from another NFL network said, did some sad high school coach lose his playbook and the Steelers found it?
Yeah, I mean, the plays, there's nothing. And as you watch the other team, they keep inching up to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes you get 9 guys in the box.
Yeah, and these wide runs with Najee Harris never go anywhere. People have sniffed out, you can't run 10 wide receiver sweeps a game. That's supposed to be a play you break out every couple of weeks to just really, unless you're the Chiefs and you have Mecole Hardman running in 3 of them. But, you need the threat of, Mahomes doing something downfield.
Yeah, you need that downfield threat. They don't have it. That's the biggest thing right now. There's no threat that the Steelers are going to throw a pass that's going to go 20 yards in the air.
Yeah. In my defense of Kenny Pickett.
Here's the stat, though.
Yeah.
The Steelers have thrown deep more than any other team without any results.
Yeah. And they have, they don't seem to throw deep to Pickett, though, for some reason. The one guy they probably should throw deep to. But my defense of Kenny Pickett is I think the Steeler organization handled that, making him fight his way from. I know, because Tomlin seems like the kind of guy that in his mind, you have to be the third string quarterback to start. I'm not going to anoint you. But Kenny Pickett was a 24-year-old guy that had been in the building for 5 years. You spent a first-round pick on him. If you think that kid needed motivation, then you didn't, either you drafted the wrong guy or you weren't paying attention. Like we talked about with Juju, he and Mahomes have had lots of reps together. The Steelers split their first-team reps with 3 quarterbacks for most of the preseason, knowing that it was going to be Pickett at some point during the season. And it wasn't going to be Mason Rudolph. So, why you gave him first-team reps seemed like it was both mean to Rudolph and a waste of time for everybody else. Because these guys need to be on the same page. The linemen need to know, when Pickett starts rolling right, where is he normally going to go? Cohesion and all those things on a football field. We watched, they said, with Claypool and Johnson, there were plays where, Pickett has his best relationship with Pickens, who probably is the best receiver, but they also played the most together in the preseason.
Give me your Steeler record for the end of the season right now.
Ooh, for the end of the season? Give me 1 second here. I guess, I'm baffled by the team in general,
Mm-hmm.
I got a feeling, they're 2-5 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they lose to Philadelphia, so that's 2-6. I think they could beat New Orleans at home. So let's call them 3-6. Lose to the Bengals. So that's 3-7. I think they beat the Colts, even in Indy, right?
4-7.
The Falcons is a weird one.
I'll go 5-7.
Okay. Home for Baltimore.
6-7.
At Carolina. That should be a win, right?
7-7.
Home for the Raiders on NFL Network on Sunday night, looks like. No, Saturday night. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Close to call.
Then they're at Baltimore and home for Cleveland. So, I can see 8 wins. Right?
Could you see 9?
It's not in,
I don't want to see 9.
I don't want to see another, let's go get blown out in the first round of,
No, I don't want to see. I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. But I would rather see them go 6-11 than anything else.
Yeah, I'd like to see them, like I said, I want to see them make the Claypool trade. I want to see them get more than 5 draft picks and really go all in. And just bring in a nice influx of talent. We have to have a new offensive coordinator. I don't know,
All right, let's switch because we're making people discuss. Let's talk about food.
Okay, let's talk about food.
So on Wednesday night, I flew in Oklahoma City and drove to Okarche, Oklahoma, home of Ishan's Bar. It's not even called Restaurant Bar. It's Ishan's Bar. Established in 1895, and Oklahoma didn't become a state till 1907. So you got a restaurant bar that's 127 years old.
Yeah, that's old.
It's old. And your specialty is fried chicken. And you get a whole fried chicken, which is 8 pieces, for $16.
That's a great deal.
That's $2 a piece.
I think at Gus's you get a half fried chicken for that price.
Yeah. And it's really good. There's no paper plates. You get sheets of wax paper or parchment paper to put your food on. The other menu items are fried okra, chili cheese nachos, a roast beef sandwich, a barbecue beef sandwich, and an order of fried okra, and that's it.
Wow.
That's the menu. Nothing from the potato family. No coleslaw. no baked beans,
No mac and cheese.
no mac and cheese. So it was
But
a very interesting menu, but it was really, really good.
and if you do one thing right, you're good. So
And for 9 people, the bill, we had like 3 whole chickens and 2 orders and beer. For 9 people, the bill's $120.
that's insane. That's like going to McDonald's with 9 people.
Yeah, 9 people. So that's meal number 1. Meal number 2 was breakfast at a place called Good Gravy that I think I've talked about before.
Yeah, you have. I want to go there.
During the week, there's 41 different gravies, and on weekends, it's 44. Because they have 3 different gravies they add on Saturday and Sunday, one of them being chocolate. But for my order, I ordered a stacker. And a stacker is a biscuit covered in hash browns, then your choice of breakfast meat. I had ham. Then your choice of egg covered in gravy. You pick the gravy. I saw 40 different gravies. I just had regular sausage gravy. And that was outstanding. This is really, really good.
That's crazy, yeah.
Like 3 of us had that. It just, it's like the old Barnyard Buster that we used to like in PJ's in Columbus.
Or the,
But better.
yeah.
And then I had one I didn't like.
Uh-oh.
Andy wanted to have an onion burger, which is famous in Oklahoma, where they just, grill an onion and throw a burger on top of it and smash it in. And it's an onion burger, and you put, whatever you want on it besides that. And they had hand-dipped shakes and hand-cut fries. And after about 4 or 5 bites, I could already feel I wasn't going to feel good. And I didn't feel good that night or the next day.
Yeah.
So that was a mistake. But Ishins and good gravies in Oklahoma City, and both of those I would rate as, must go-tos.
Okay. Well, I did not have any food moments this week. And my only entertainment, we've been watching a lot of horror movies because it's October. We haven't seen anything new that's good. But we've also been watching a lot of tiny home shows.
Yeah, you've been on that.
We have. And
You want a tiny home?
oh God, no. I don't think 6'4" and a tiny home go well together.
I don't think so either.
It's a tiny home. And not that you can't, but I mean, if you want the tiny home to be mobile, then you've got to build it short. Otherwise, it won't fit through, you've been on the road, you've seen what it's like. But I always find it funny because I like the premise, people's motivations for the tiny home, right? They want to make a smaller environmental impact, be outside more, travel more, spend more on activities and less on stuff, which is all beautiful things. But I've noticed the tiny home community, you either get incredibly delusional people, like the last one we watched, I'll just give 2 brief summaries, but it was a family of 4.
Oh my God.
With a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I think this is important because a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, they might get on board with a tiny house, but they won't be 3 and 4 for very long. And they moved in, a tiny house is less than 500 square feet. So they moved into a 420 square foot home with 4 people. And again, a 3 and a 4-year-old sleeping in a loft is fine for about a year?
If that.
That, and then my favorite is watching a couple move into a tiny home where you can clearly see the power dynamic where the one is like, we're moving into a tiny home, this is the greatest thing ever, and the other one is just resigned to be like, oh God, fuck. And having to make all these sacrifices. It just seems like, sort of a weird, it's like I said, I enjoy the spirit behind the tiny home movement, but I just think, it's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And there are endless tiny home shows if you want to watch them on YouTube or on Hulu. There's no shortage of FYI and Canadian home makeover shows. Like there's plenty of home shows all over Hulu, which we like as a palate cleanser in between horror movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that seems like a good palate cleanser.
It is. And it's fun both to look at things you would do to your house and then, the one cool thing about a lot of the stuff is that in order to make furniture functional in a tiny home, it has to be multi-purposed.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch these incredible builds where you'll watch like a desk become a couch, and then all of a sudden it flips again and it's a bed. As far as like spacing, it's kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. And then I'll see you in a couple of days. We'll have some food moments together, probably.
And we're all celebrating Jason's wedding in New Orleans on Thursday. It's a costume reception, so check out my Twitter page for some outrageous photos, I'm sure.
Yeah, we decided we've been to enough weddings. Obviously, if you're a couple of a certain age, you go to a lot of weddings, and we hate them all. They're all boring. So we're skipping all the wedding part and just making it a party with alcohol and costumes in New Orleans on Halloween. So it's even more fun.
It's a winner.
Yeah. So everybody have a good week.
Enjoy the World Series. Go find something good to eat, and continuing saga of the NFL being surprise worthy.
Oh, and one last update. I have ceased gambling.
Oh, okay.
I still have a couple of NBA future bets on win over, and like I said, I have Jacksonville bet to win the AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
But after taking out half of the money I won from all my free bets, which again I still think is a great thing to take advantage of.
Yeah, for sure.
I lost pretty much the entire pool that's not bet on season-ending bets, and I've been strong enough just to walk away. But it is appealing. But I know I was like, it's the cautionary tale of like, eventually they get you because otherwise there wouldn't be a business.
What it does.
Yeah, that's why Vegas.
It's gotten people for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, eventually the house will probably win.
Eventually they will. I was watching what was the line on the Steelers game last night? 6 points, right?
Yeah.
What was the final? 6 points.
I had the Steelers, but it pushed because, or you lost because they didn't, they lost by whatever. So that was a big, I only bet $10 on them. That was like my last bet, and that was a stupid bet. But I was like, you know what? I was like, defense is playing well. Pickens, I bought in, and it's over. So
It just wasn't enough for the things you liked.
no. All right, so we'll talk to you next week.
Have a good week.